The old floorboards creak under my feet as I move around the room in search of a warm sweater. It's been a chilly October this year, and the heating in my house isn't working every once in a while. This house seems to be aging with me. I'm 73. He's almost 90. We have a lot in common. We both creak, leak in bad weather, and hold memories that no one cares about anymore. It's been 5 years since Ivan's passing, 47 years together, and suddenly there's an emptiness. His chair still sits by the window, rubbed to a shine on the armrests. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I think he's still sitting there, looking out over our garden as he did every night before bed. I miss even his grumbling about my habit of staying up late with a book. "Violet, your eyes aren't getting any younger," he used to say. I'd give anything to hear that again. Finding a sweater in the depths of my closet, I notice a box of photos. Sitting down on the edge of the bed, I open it. On top is a picture of little Elliot. He's about 6 years old here, sitting on his father's shoulders, smiling broadly with a toothless grin. Blonde-haired with freckles scattered across his nose, he looks just like Ivan. Elliot was such a lively child, always bringing home stray kittens or downed birds. He had a good heart. When he went to school, teachers praised his compassion and empathy. "Your son has a rare gift for seeing the pain of others," his class teacher said. "Where is all that gone?" Sometimes I look at him now and I don't recognize him. It's like my boy has been replaced. I put the pictures back in the box. There's no time to reminisce. I have to pack. Today is the first Saturday of the month, which means I have to make my monthly visit to Elliot and Heather. It's a tradition that started after Ivan's death. My son insisted I visit them at least once a month. "Mom, you can't sit alone in that old house all the time. You need companionship." At first, I was grateful for this concern. I didn't realize it was his idea, not Heather's. Oh, Heather. I pull my suitcase out from under the bed and start packing, carefully folding the blouse I'd bought especially for these visits. It's light blue, with embroidery along the collar. "This color refreshes you, Mrs. Cobb," the saleswoman said. I wanted to believe it was true. Lately, the mirror reflected only a faded version of the woman I'd once been. When Elliot had first brought Heather into our house, I'd tried to be friendly. She seemed so fragile and graceful with her brown hair and chiseled features. She smiled politely, complimented my apple pie, listened intently to Ivan's stories about his work as a mechanic on the railroad. "She comes from a good family, Mom," Elliot said proudly. "Her father is a bank manager in Green River." I saw the way he looked at her, as if she were a miracle descended into his life. It was the same look I'd seen in Ivan when we'd first met. The resemblance made my heart ache. Everything changed after the wedding. It was as if a mask had fallen from her face. At first, it was little things. She might forget to hand me the phone when I called them, or accidentally, failing to mention important events in their lives. And then there was that expression, a mixture of pity and annoyance, when she looked at me. I didn't understand why I deserved such an attitude. I tried to be helpful, bringing home-cooked food, offering to babysit their cat when they went away, not interfering with their decisions. One day, I overheard her talking to her mother on the phone. "My mother-in-law is asking to come over again. God, she can't take a hint. We have our own life." It was like a punch in the gut. From then on, I began to notice Heather slowly pulling my son away from me. First, their visits got shorter, then less. Elliot always made excuses. Busy at work, tired, lots of projects. When Ivan died, Elliot took over the funeral arrangements. Heather stayed behind the whole time, a look of mournful politeness on her face. After the funeral, she offered to help sort through Ivan's things. I declined. It was too personal, too painful to share with someone who wasn't really grieving. That's when the idea of my monthly visits came up. It would be better if you came to visit us, Elliot said. At your age, it's tiring to have visitors. My age, like I wasn't 70, but 90. I put my blood pressure pills and heart meds in my suitcase. Not that I need them every day, but it's better to have them with me. I add a book, a detective that I started reading last week. Knowing Heather, I can assume I'll be left to myself most of the time. Their house in Green River is the exact opposite of mine. It's modern, sterilely clean, like a magazine cover. No signs of life, no books scattered about, no scarf unfinished, no cup left on the windowsill. Everything is perfect, everything in its place. The first time I'd stayed overnight, Heather had given me a guest bedroom. The room looked uninhabited, white linens, empty bedside tables, no personal belongings. Make yourself at home, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How can you feel at home in a place that feels more like a hotel room? I sigh and close my suitcase. The train to Green River leaves at 3 in the afternoon. I still have to check to make sure all the windows are locked, the gas is off, and feed the neighbor's cat, who has a habit of coming over in the mornings. In the hallway, I stop in front of the mirror. My gray hair is neatly styled, and my face is covered in subtle makeup. I don't want to give Heather any reason to think I'm down or not looking after myself. Over the years, I've learned to read between the lines. When she says, "You look tired, Violet," she means, "You look old and sick." When she says, "How do you manage alone in such a big house?" what she's really asking is, "When will you finally move into a nursing home and relieve us of the responsibility of worrying about you?" And yet I continue to go to see them every month. For Elliot, for the memory of that little boy in the picture who once looked at me with such adoration. Sometimes, in rare moments, I see glimpses of that boy in the eyes of a grown man. It usually happens when Heather isn't around. Elliot might suddenly ask about my garden or remember a story from his childhood. It's at times like this that we connect, and I almost believe that all is not lost. But when Heather appears, he's back to the aloof, politely indifferent man I barely recognize. I look at my watch. It's time to get out if I want to catch the train. I grab my suitcase and walk out onto the porch. The October wind rattles the yellowed leaves of the maple tree in front of the house. Ivan and I planted it the year Elliot was born. Now it's a mighty tree that has survived droughts, hurricanes, and winter frosts. "You look just like that maple, Violet," Ivan said to me one day. "Just as strong and flexible. You bend, but you don't break." I hope he's right, because my upcoming visit, as always, will require both strength and flexibility. I lock the door, double-check the lock, and walk down the steps. It's a 15-minute walk to the bus stop. I could call a cab, but I prefer this walk. There's always something to distract me on the bus. The conversations of fellow passengers, the views out the window, my own thoughts. In my coat pocket, I fumble for an envelope of money. It's a gift for Elliot, a small sum I've been saving from my pension. I know he and Heather make good money and don't need my help, but it's important for me to give something to my son, to feel like I can still be useful. Heather, of course, will cringe when she sees the envelope. To her, it's a handout, an outdated gesture. I once heard her hiss at Elliot, "Stop taking money from her. It's demeaning." And he replied, "You don't understand. It's important to her." At that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe he understands me better than he thinks he does. The bus arrives on time. I sit at the window and watch the familiar streets float by. Little houses with well-tended gardens, the school where Elliot used to go to school, the park where we used to walk on weekends. It's all so familiar and yet a little foreign at the same time. Life goes on all around me, and I feel like I'm stuck in the past. A house that's slowly falling apart, in memories that no one but me wants, in a relationship with my son that is becoming more and more formal every year. But I'm not giving up. Every month I get on this train. Every month I smile at Heather and pretend I don't notice her disdain. Every month I hope that this time will be different. Maybe this time Elliot will actually be excited for me to come. Maybe Heather will be a little less cold. Maybe we can at least feel like a family for a weekend. The bus stops at the train station. I get off and head to the platform. The train is already waiting. It's a 2-hour drive to Green River. 2 hours to prepare for a meeting that will surely follow a familiar script. But I'm going, because Elliot is all I have left. And as long as there's any chance of repairing our relationship, I'm going to try. Green River greets me with gray clouds and drizzle. I step off the train, gripping the handle of my suitcase tighter. The platform is sparsely populated. A few business travelers with travel bags, a couple of students with backpacks, an elderly couple greeting, judging by their exclamations of joy, their daughter and grandchildren. No one meets me. I know the way and can get there on my own. That's what Elliot usually says when I call him before I arrive. Heather has yoga and I have a client meeting. You can handle it, right, Mom? Of course I can handle it. I've handled everything in my life. A difficult pregnancy, raising my son while Ivan worked night shifts, his illness and death. Why shouldn't I handle the drive from the train station to their house? A cab is found quickly. The driver, a full middle-aged man with thinning hair, helps me with my suitcase. As we drive through town, I look out the window at the neat streets with stores and cafes. Green River is a more prosperous city than where I live. Everything here seems newer, cleaner, more prosperous. Elliot and Heather's house is in an upscale neighborhood on a hill. It's a 2-story light-colored brick building with large windows and a well-kept, albeit small, garden. When the cab stops at the gate, I notice that Elliot's car isn't in the driveway, but Heather's silver BMW is. I pay the driver, refusing to help with the suitcase. I don't want to bother the man again. I walk to the front door, feeling every muscle in my body tense. It's like I'm preparing for a battle, not a family reunion. I ring the doorbell. I wait. I ring the doorbell again. Finally, I hear footsteps approaching. The door opens and Heather stands on the doorstep. She's wearing an expensive homemade suit made of some kind of flowing fabric, her hair in a sloppy but obviously thoughtful bun. Not a trace of a friendly smile on her face. Violet? She says my name like it's a diagnosis. You're early. We were expecting you at 6. The train was on time, I reply calmly. 4:30, like always. She steps aside, letting me into the house. Elliot's still at work. He got held up in a meeting with an important client. There's pride in her voice. For Heather, status and career have always come first. When they were first married, she worked at a big law firm. Then she gave up her career, claiming she wanted to be the perfect wife. In fact, as I realized later, she just didn't want to make the effort. Come on in, I'll show you to your room, she said in the tone of a hotel receptionist. Heather, I've been here dozens of times. I know where the guest bedroom is. She presses her lips together. We've changed a few things in the house. You'll now be in the room next to Elliot's office. I follow her up the stairs, struggling to hold my suitcase. My joints aren't what they used to be. Heather doesn't even offer to help. The room turns out to be smaller than the previous one. A narrow bed, a dresser, a small table by the window. No TV, no chair to read in. This used to be a closet, Heather explains, seeing my surprise. But we decided to remodel it. You don't need a lot of space, do you? I set my suitcase on the floor and smile. Of course I don't. It's very nice of you to give me my own room. She nods, not noticing the irony. Dinner will be at 7. Elliot should be back by 6:30. Make yourself comfortable. She leaves, leaving me alone in a tiny room that looks more like a closet than a guest bedroom. I sit down on the bed, feeling the springs of the mattress digging into my thighs. Definitely not new. probably left over from some old furniture they threw out when they renovated. The room speaks for itself. They don't expect me here, and they don't want me here. I am a burden to them, tolerated out of a sense of duty. I unpack, trying not to think about the fact that Heather specifically chose this room to show me my place. I hang my blouse and pants in the closet, which turns out to be too shallow. The clothes barely fit. Once upon a time, I thought Heather and I could develop a warm relationship. I was ready to become a second mother to her, to help with advice, to support their family. But she made it clear from the beginning that she didn't need me or my advice. My mom has her own parenting methods, she said when I offered to help with future grandchildren. If we need a nanny, we'll hire a professional. Grandchildren. They still aren't here. When I cautiously ask Elliot about it, he answers evasively. Heather and I are focused on our careers for now. Or, it's not a good time. He's 38 now. Heather is 35. But they avoid the subject of children as if it were something shameful. I clean myself up, washing my face in the small bathroom at the end of the hall. The mirror reflects a tired face with deep wrinkles around my eyes and mouth. It's silly to deny the obvious, I'm getting older. But is that any reason to treat me like a burden? I walk down to the living room. Heather is sitting on the couch, flipping through a glossy magazine. I pretend not to notice her hurriedly putting it away as I enter. Is there anything I can do to help with dinner? I ask politely. No need, she replies. I ordered food from the restaurant. It'll be here by 7. I used to cook for them when I visited. I'd bring jars of homemade jam, bake apple pie, Elliot's favorite dessert since he was a kid. But the last 2 times, Heather had accidentally ordered dinner from a restaurant, claiming she'd forgotten I was coming and hadn't had time to prepare anything. I sit down in the chair across from her, noticing how she wrinkles her nose slightly, as if my presence makes her physically uncomfortable. How are you doing, Heather? How's Elliot's work going? It's great, she replies, not taking her eyes off her phone. Elliot got a promotion last month. He's now a junior partner. That's great, I exclaim sincerely. Why didn't he tell me when we talked? Heather shrugs her shoulders. He must have forgotten. He's had so much on his plate lately. I know she's lying. Elliot wouldn't forget to tell me about such an important event. She's the one who kept him from calling, convinced him it was unimportant, that I wasn't interested in his accomplishments. We sit in awkward silence. I'm trying to remember when conversations with Heather stopped being just tense and became downright hostile. Maybe after that family meeting 3 years ago, when I had the indiscretion to mention that I hoped to live to see my grandchildren born. She looked at me as if I'd wished her dead. At 6:30, we hear the sound of a car pulling up. Heather instantly transforms, straightening her back, fixing her hair, a smile on her face. The front door opens and Elliot appears. He's changed in the month I haven't seen him. He's thinner, shadows under his eyes. His hair, once blonde like Ivan's, is now a noticeable gray at the temples, though he's not even 40. Mom, he exclaims when he sees me, and for a moment I see the genuine joy in his eyes. He comes over, hugs me, too quickly and formally, and then pulls back. How was the trip? Everything okay? You look tired. I'm fine, honey, I reply, suppressing the urge to touch his face, to smooth the wrinkle between his eyebrows like I did when he was a kid. The train was on time. I just heard from Heather about your promotion. Congratulations. He casts a quick glance at his wife. Thanks, Mom. Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. I wanted to surprise you when we met. Elliot, honey, Heather intervenes, walking over to him and putting a hand on his shoulder. Why don't you take a shower? Dinner will be here in 20 minutes. He nods, as if instructed, and heads upstairs. I'm alone with Heather again, who is now looking at me with poorly concealed irritation. You shouldn't ask Elliot so many questions as soon as he walks through the door, she says. He's tired after a hard day's work. I was just asking about his promotion, I say softly. Is it unnatural for a mother to be proud of her son's success? She doesn't have time to answer. The doorbell rings. Food delivery from the restaurant. Dinner passes in a strained atmosphere. Elliot talks about his work, avoiding looking me in the eye. Heather inserts comments emphasizing the importance of his new position. I listen, nodding, asking questions, trying not to show how painful it is to see my son turned into the puppet of an ambitious wife. By the way, Mom, Elliot says suddenly, averting his gaze, Heather and I have been wanting to talk to you about something for a long time. I feel my insides tense. I know that tone he always said that when he was about to say something unpleasant. Of course, darling. About what? He looks at Heather as if looking for support. She nods encouragingly. We're thinking, he begins, but Heather interrupts. Violet, we're worried about you. This old house you live in, it's in a terrible state. The roof leaks, the porch steps are rotten. What if you fall? What if there's a fire? There's nothing wrong with my house, I answer firmly. Yes, it needs repairs, but I can manage. Mom, Elliot enters. We found a great place for you. Sunnyside Nursing Home in Green River. It has everything you need. Medical staff around the clock, activities for seniors, great food. A nursing home? I ask again, feeling a chill go through my insides. You want to send me to a nursing home? Don't say that, Mom. Elliot wrinkled his nose. No one's sending you anywhere. We offer more comfortable living conditions. You can sell your house, Heather adds. The money would be enough for a few years of living in Sunnyside. And then, we'll help. She says the last phrase as if she were promising alms to a beggar. My house is not for sale, I say quietly but firmly. It's where I've lived with Ivan for almost 50 years. It's where Elliot grew up. All my memories are buried there. But Mom, no, Elliot. I'm not selling the house and moving to Sunnyside or any other nursing home. I'm sane and I can make my own decisions about my life. There is a tense silence at the table. Heather looks at me with barely concealed anger. Elliot looks upset, but not surprised. He must have expected this reaction. We were only trying to help, Heather finally says with fake concern in her voice. But if you'd rather live in a crumbling house and risk your health, that's your choice. Heather, Elliot says in a warning tone. What? She snapped back. I'm just telling the truth. Your mother is stubborn and won't listen to reason. I calmly put my fork and knife back on my plate. Thank you for dinner. If you don't mind, I'll go to my room. The drive has tired me out. Of course, Mom. Elliot agrees hastily. Get some rest. Tomorrow we can go to that park you like. Heather gives him a disgruntled look, but doesn't say anything. I go up to my room, feeling my knees shake from the tension I've experienced. Did they really think I'd go along with this? That I would sell the house, where every corner reminded me of Ivan and the happy years of our lives, and move into a sterile room in a nursing home? I try to read, but the letters blur in front of my eyes. My mind goes back to the dinner conversation over and over again. I wonder if it was Elliot's idea or Heather's. I know the answer, though. Elliot would never have suggested such a thing on his own. He might have agreed under pressure from his wife, but not initiated it. Time drags slowly. It's getting dark outside the window. I hear Elliot and Heather moving around the house, talking softly. Around 11, the house gets quiet. They must have gone to bed. I try to sleep too, but sleep doesn't come. I get out of bed, deciding to go down to the kitchen and get a drink of water. I open the door and immediately freeze. There are voices coming from behind the loose door of Elliot's office. They're awake, and from the tone of their voices, they're arguing. I know it's wrong to eavesdrop, My mom always taught me that decent people don't do that, but my feet carry me closer to the office. I don't know why you didn't back me up. I hear Heather's irritated voice. I thought we agreed that we were going to work together to convince her. I did, Elliot replied tiredly. But you saw her reaction. She'll never agree to sell the house. Because you didn't push her hard enough. Heather doesn't hide her anger. You need to be harder on her. She's manipulating you, playing on your guilt. She's my mother, Heather, and she's not manipulative. She just wants to live in her house, in a wreck that's about to fall on her head. Have you seen the state of that house? It needs major repairs, and she doesn't have the money. I can help her with the repairs, Elliot offers tentatively. Are you crazy? Heather hisses. We have a mortgage, a car loan, and you want to put money into a house you're going to have to sell soon anyway? What do you mean? I mean, your mother's 73 years old, Elliot. How long is she going to live in that house? 5 years? 10? And then you'll still have the house and you'll have to sell it. So wouldn't it be better to do it now, while it's still worth something? There's a pause. I stand, gripping the door jamb, feeling dizzy. So here's the thing. They don't want my money, they want my house. Or rather, the money from selling it. I can't force her, Elliot finally says. It's her house, her decision. Then we'll have to find other ways. Heather's voice sounded determined. It's time to get rid of the old woman and her damn house. What do you mean? Elliot's voice sounded worried. Heather, what are you talking about? I'm saying that if we can't convince her nicely, we're going to have to do something else. There are ways to declare a person incompetent, especially at her age. I can't hear what she's saying next. My ears are ringing. My legs are shaking. By some miracle, I get to my room and close the door behind me. My heart is pounding like it's about to jump out of my chest. My hands are shaking, and my throat feels nauseous. Would my sister-in-law really do such a thing? And what's scarier? Can my son really let her do it? I sit on the bed, trying to calm down. My head is rushing with scraps of thoughts. I have to leave. Tomorrow. Come home. Lock the doors. Keep them out. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I know that if Heather is determined to get my house, she won't stop. And Elliot seems too weak to stand up to her. It's time to get rid of the old woman. Those words echo in my head as I sit in the dark, feeling more alone than ever. Morning comes all too quickly. I barely slept, having tossed and turned all night, replaying the conversation I overheard in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Heather's cold voice. It's time to get rid of the old woman. Gray light shines through the thin curtains. The clock reads 6 in the morning. The house is quiet. Elliot and Heather are probably still asleep. My first thought is to quietly pack up and leave before they wake up. Get to the train station, catch the first train, and go home, back to my fortress, albeit a crumbling one, as Heather scornfully put it. But something stops me. Small-mindedness? Fear? Hope that I've misunderstood? Or a desire to talk to Elliot alone, to try to get through to him, to remind him that I'm his mother, not a burden to be gotten rid of. I force myself to get up, wash my face, get dressed. I choose a simple blouse and pants, things in which I will feel comfortable during the trip home. I've made up my mind. I'm leaving today. I will not wait until Sunday night as I had originally planned. No one needs my presence here, and it's pointless to continue this farce. I go down to the kitchen around 7. To my surprise, Elliot is already there, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, looking at something on his phone. He doesn't look good, circles under his eyes, the stubble he usually shaves off every morning, his hair disheveled. "Good morning, Mom," he says, looking up at me tiredly. "You're early." "Habit," I reply, trying to sound casual. "I've spent my whole life getting up at 6 to make breakfast for you and Dad. It's hard to break it even now." He smiles weakly. I remember. Your blueberry pancakes on Saturdays? Best breakfast ever. For a moment, there is that thread between us, the mother son bond that neither years, distance, nor Heather have been able to break. But the moment passes quickly. Elliot, I say, working up the courage to speak, I wanted to tell you that I'm coming home tonight. I won't be staying until Sunday. He looks up at me in surprise. Why? Is something wrong? Your wife wants to get rid of me and get my house, I want to shout. But instead, I say, I just feel it's time to get back. I've got a lot to do back home. He frowns, clearly disbelieving. Mom, if this is about the nursing home talk last night, we didn't mean to upset you. We're just worried. I know, I lie, and I appreciate your concern, but my decision has nothing to do with it. Heather enters the kitchen at that moment. She's wearing a silk robe, her hair perfectly styled despite the early hour, her makeup flawless on her face. I wonder how much time she spends every morning to create the illusion of natural beauty. Good morning, she says, faking a smile. What are you talking about? Mom wants to leave today, Elliot replies. I try to figure out why. Heather looks at me, and I think there's a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. She's waiting for my answer. I'm just homesick, I answer flatly. I don't want to be a burden on you all weekend. That's nonsense, Violet, Heather exclaimed with fake concern. You're never a burden. Right, Elliot? He nods, but he's not sure. Of course not. But if Mom wants to come back early, we have to respect her decision. When do you want to leave, Mom? He asks after a pause. There's a train at 11 o'clock, I answer, trying to keep my voice firm. If you can take me, please. Before Elliot can answer, Heather intervenes. Unfortunately, Elliot has an important meeting at 11 that he can't miss. But I'd be happy to drive you, Violet. My heart drops. The last thing I want is to be alone with Heather in the car. But there doesn't seem to be a choice. Is it true? I'm asking Elliot. You have a meeting on Saturday? He looks confused. Yeah, unscheduled. The client insisted. I was going to tell you. I'm sorry, Mom. I don't know if it's true or another lie, but I don't want to make a scene. It's okay, I said. Thank you, Heather, for the offer. I'll be ready by 10:30. She nods, smiling that smile that makes me feel cold inside. That's great. Now, why don't we get some breakfast? I've made a frittata with vegetables. Breakfast is a tense affair. Elliot barely speaks, staring at his phone. Heather chirps about some plans to renovate the house, about the new car they're going to buy, about traveling to Europe next summer. I nod and feign interest, but my thoughts are far away. After breakfast, I go up to my room and start packing. My hands are shaking a little, and I'm angry at myself for this weakness. I'm 73 years old. I've survived the death of my husband, raised a son, built a career in a small town where it wasn't easy for women to find their place. Am I really going to let some upstart like Heather intimidate me? Around 10, there's a knock on my room door. It's Elliot. Mom, I'm leaving for a meeting, he says without looking me in the eye. Heather will take you to the train station. I want to ask him about the conversation I overheard last night. I want to know if he's really going to let his wife get rid of me. But instead, I just nod. Okay, son, good luck with the meeting. He makes a motion like he wants to hug me, but stops and just pats me on the shoulder. I'll call you next week, he promises. When he leaves, I stand at the window and watch him get in his car and drive away. Something tells me there's no meeting. He just doesn't want to see his mother leave because of the conflict with his wife. At 10:30, I come downstairs with my suitcase. Heather is already waiting, dressed in an expensive pantsuit, car keys in hand. Are you ready, Violet? She asks with the same fake smile. Yes, I answer briefly. She doesn't offer to help with the suitcase, and I don't ask. I leave the house in silence and head for her silver BMW. The drive to the train station takes about 20 minutes. The first 5 minutes we drive in silence, broken only by the soft music from the speakers. You know, Violet, Heather finally says, keeping her eyes on the road. You should seriously consider our offer. Sunnyside Nursing Home is a wonderful place. Much better than that, barn you live in. I look at her perfect profile and feel a wave of anger rising inside. My house isn't a barn, I say quietly. It's where I've lived most of my life, where I was happy with my husband, where my son grew up. Sentimentality, she cuts off. It's just walls and a roof that's about to collapse. The house could be repaired. With what money? She gives me a quick glance. You don't have any, and if you think Elliot's gonna spend our money on your, museum of memories, you're wrong. I've never asked Elliot for money, I reply, feeling my cheeks burn with indignation, and I don't intend to. Oh, I know, she grinned. You're too proud for that. But sooner or later you have to face the obvious. You can't live there forever. Old age spares no one, Violet. What do you suggest? I ask, even though I already know the answer. Sell the house, move to Sunnyside, and give the money from the sale to you? She brakes sharply at a stoplight, which throws me forward. Not to us, but to you for living expenses, she exclaims. Why do you always see us as some kind of villains? We want to help. I heard you talking last night, I say quietly, about how it's time to get rid of the old lady. Heather turns pale. For a moment, her mask falls away, and I see the real Heather, cold, calculating, cruel. It's not nice to eavesdrop, she said through gritted teeth. Saying those things about her husband's mother isn't either. The traffic light turns green, and she pulls away. We're going faster now than before, too fast for city streets. You don't understand anything, she says, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turn white. Elliot's worried about you. I do. You live alone in a house that's about to fall apart, with no neighbors nearby to help you in case of trouble. I'm doing just fine on my own, I reply. And I have neighbors. Betty Ross comes in every morning for a cup of tea. Ted Harrison helps with the hard work in the garden. I have friends, Heather. People who really care about me. She snorts. Old people just like you. What can they do if you have a stroke, or a heart attack, or if you fall down the stairs? The same thing they do in your precious nursing home, call an ambulance. She makes a sharp turn at another intersection, and I'm thrown against the door. You're unbearably stubborn, she says. Elliot warned me, but I didn't think it was that bad. What exactly did he say about me? I ask, feeling my heart clench. That you're living in the past, that you can't adapt to the new, that you're becoming more and more forgetful and distracted. Every word is a stabbing blow. Did Elliot really say that about me? Or is this another one of Heather's lies? I don't believe my son would say such a thing, I said firmly. Of course you don't, she grinned. To you, he's still the little boy who adored his mommy. But he's grown up, Violet. He's got his own life, his own priorities. And frankly, you're not one of them. Her words hurt, but I try not to show it. I won't give her that pleasure. If that's true, I say calmly, then I can only regret what my son has become under your influence. Ivan would be disappointed. The mention of her late husband seems to strike a nerve with her. She turns the steering wheel sharply, and the car slides to the curb. Enough, she yells. I've tried to be polite. I've tried to explain things nicely, but it's impossible with you. We pull over. I look around and realize that we're already at the station. A big gray building is visible ahead, only 100 meters away. Get out, she says, pressing the button that opens the lock on my door. Heather, I start, trying to reach for some humanity in her. Let's talk calmly. Come out, she says louder. I took you to the train station like I promised. You can take it from here. I realize it's useless to argue. I open the door and get out of the car. I go to the trunk to get my suitcase. The trunk, I yell when I realize it's locked. There's a click as she opens it from the driver's seat. I open the lid and have just enough time to grab the handle of the suitcase when the trunk suddenly slams shut, miraculously not pinching my fingers. "What are you doing?" I exclaim. In response, Heather jumps out of the car, pops the trunk, and roughly yanks my suitcase out, tossing it onto the sidewalk. "Here's your stuff," she yells. "Now get out, go back to your crumbling barn, and leave us alone." From the surprise and the force of her jerk, I lose my balance and fall, hitting my head painfully on the curb. Stars flashed before my eyes, and my ears rang. I feel something warm running down my temple, blood. "Oh my God," I hear her frightened voice. "What have you done?" "Me?" I try to get up, but I feel dizzy and nauseous. "You pushed me?" "I did not," she protests, backing away from the car. "You fell. I didn't do anything." Passers-by begin to stop, looking at us curiously and anxiously. "Can I help you, ma'am?" asks a young man, approaching me. "No need," Heather replies quickly. "My mother-in-law just tripped. She's fine." "I'm not asking you," the young man says firmly and turns to me. "Do you need help? Should I call an ambulance?" I look at Heather and she's clearly scared, not at my condition, but at what she might do to herself. "No, thank you," I said, pulling myself together. "I just took a bad fall. I'll be fine." The young man helps me up. I'm still dizzy, but I try to keep my head up. "Are you sure? You're bleeding," he says, nodding at my temple. I take a handkerchief out of my bag and apply it to the wound. "It's just a scratch," I say with a forced smile. "Thanks for your concern." Heather stands next to me, clearly unsure of what to do. On the one hand, she wants to make sure I don't blame her for what happened. On the other hand, she's anxious to leave. "Maybe we should take you to the hospital," she asks in a fake caring tone. "No," I cut her off. "I'll be fine on my own. Thanks for driving me to the station, Heather." She hesitates, but then nods, clearly relieved. "Well, goodbye, Violet." "Goodbye," I answer coldly. She quickly gets into the car and drives away without even looking back. The young man who helped me shakes his head. "Your daughter-in-law, isn't she?" he asks. "Not the warmest of relationships, I see." "You're very observant," I reply with a bitter smile. "Are you sure you can handle it? Shouldn't we call a doctor?" "No, thank you. I have a train to catch." He helps me with my suitcase, takes me to the station entrance, and I thank him for his help. Inside, I sit down on a bench and try to clean myself up. I'm not bleeding as much, but my head hurts, and I'm sure I'll have a decent bruise on my temple. It's still half an hour before the train leaves. I sit with my handkerchief pressed to my temple, trying to make sense of what has happened. My sister-in-law physically attacked me, pushed my things out of the car with such force that I fell and hit my head, and then drove off without even making sure I was okay. What would Elliot say if he found out? Would he believe me? Or would he side with his wife, who would probably tell him a very different version of events? The train arrives on time. With difficulty, I climb the steps, drag my suitcase in, and find my seat. My head still hurts, and I feel weak throughout my body. But worse than the physical pain is the feeling of humiliation and helplessness. As the train pulls away, I look out the window at the receding Green River and think about the fact that I may never come back here again. A thought that should cause sadness somehow brings only relief. The drive home seems endless. Every jolt of the train echoes in my head. I close my eyes and try to think of something good. My garden, the books I want to read, the cup of hot tea I'll make when I get home. But my thoughts keep coming back to what happened, to Heather's cold eyes, to her words, to the way she threw my suitcase away without caring about the consequences, to the way my own son seems to allow her to treat me this way. When the train finally arrives at my station, I struggle to get up. My whole body aches, and I feel dizzy. I make my way down to the platform and walk to the exit. Now, the hardest thing is to get home. It's not easy to find a cab here, especially on a weekend. The bus won't be here for another hour. I decide to walk. It's only 15 minutes on foot. But today, those 15 minutes turn into a real ordeal. The suitcase feels heavy, and every step is difficult. Several times I have to stop to catch my breath. At some point, I start to feel nauseous again, and I realize that I may have a concussion. Finally, I see my house. Old, dilapidated in places, but so homey and dependable. A crumbling barn, Heather called it. But for me, it's a fortress, a refuge, the only place I feel safe. I climb the porch steps, struggle to get the key into the keyhole, and step inside. The smell of the house, a mixture of old wood, books, and the light scent of lavender envelops me. I leave my suitcase in the hallway. I don't have the energy to drag it upstairs. I go to the kitchen, pour a glass of water, and take out my headache pills. Then I find antiseptic and Band-Aids in the medicine cabinet and treat the wound on my temple. When I look in the mirror, I shudder. Pale face, disheveled gray hair, a bruise on my temple, widening before my eyes. I look exactly the way an old woman who wants to get rid of herself should look. I go into the living room and sit down in Ivan's chair. I dial Betty's number, my neighbor and friend. "Betty," I say when she answers the phone. "Could you come in? I think I'm in trouble." 3 days passed in a blur. The doctor from the local clinic that Betty called confirmed a mild concussion and put 2 stitches in the wound on my temple. "You're lucky, Mrs. Cobb," he said as he examined me. "The fall could have ended much worse at your age." My age. That phrase has haunted me for the past few years, like a stigma, a reminder that I'm not the woman I used to be. Betty insisted I stay on bed rest for a few days. She came 3 times a day, bringing food, checking on my condition, helping with household chores. Her concern was heartwarming, especially in the face of the way my own family had treated me. Elliot hadn't called once in those 3 days, not to see how I'd gotten there, not to ask how I was doing. I wasn't expecting a call, though. I'm sure Heather told him her version of events, which made me look like a cranky old woman who'd accidentally tripped at the train station. The morning of the third day greets me with sunlight streaming through the curtains. My head hardly hurts at all. Only a slight pressure in my temples reminds me of what happened. I get out of bed, feeling unusually light for the first time in days. Maybe the concussion is wearing off, or maybe I'm just used to the constant discomfort. I go down to the kitchen and make tea, herbal tea, as the doctor advised. I need to avoid coffee and other stimulants until I'm fully recovered. I sit by the window, looking out at my garden. October has colored the leaves gold and purple. I'll have to rake them into piles soon, but I'll think about that later. Right now, I'm just enjoying the view and the silence. The silence is broken by the ringing of the phone. My heart sinks for a moment. Maybe it's Elliot, but the display shows another name, Ruby Payne. Ruby is an old friend of mine from high school. We once worked together at the law firm of Payne, Wilson and Associates. She as a junior partner, me as her personal assistant. That was long before Elliot was born, when women still had to prove their right to a place in the professional world. Ruby broke through the glass ceiling and became one of the first female partners in our state's legal circles. I, on the other hand, left my career when Elliot was born, but we've maintained our friendship through the years. Violet, her energetic voice sounds almost as young as it did 50 years ago, even though she's 75 now. "How are you, dear?" Betty said. "You had an accident?" "Nothing serious," I answer, touching the patch on my temple. I just had a bad fall. How about you? Still terrorizing the young lawyers at the firm? She laughs, a deep, rolling laugh. Only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Other days, I'm a sweet old lady who bakes cookies for the grandkids. We both know that's not true. Ruby was never a nice old lady. Even now, formally retired, she is still a consultant to the firm and keeps her finger on the pulse of all important matters. Violet, she said, her voice suddenly serious, I'm not just calling to chat. I have news that may concern you. Or rather, it concerns your son. My insides are freezing. Did something happen to Elliot? It's not that it happened. She pauses. Did you hear about the Brightwood Investments scandal? Brightwood Investments is the company Elliot works for, or did, according to Ruby's tone. No, I answered, gripping the receiver tighter. I haven't been at my best these past few days. What happened? It's all over the business news right now, Ruby said. Brightwood has been accused of manipulating customer data. It seems a few employees were faking earnings reports to attract big investors. When the scheme came to light, the company's stock plummeted. There's an internal investigation underway, and several people have already been fired. And Elliot, I start, already guessing where she's going with this. I'm afraid so. His name is mentioned among those who were directly involved in the data falsification. One of my former interns works in Brightwood's legal department and says Elliot was fired 2 days ago. 2 days ago, just one day after Heather pushed me out of the car. Coincidence? Or does fate have a special sense of humor? Violet, are you there? Ruby's voice shakes me out of my daze. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just, processing information. Are you sure it's true? Absolutely. And there's more. Rumor has it that Brightwood is preparing civil suits against those involved in the scheme, possibly even criminal prosecution if there's evidence of grand fraud. My heart aches for my son. Despite everything that's happened between us, he's still my boy, and the thought that he could be prosecuted, that his reputation is ruined, is almost physically painful. But how could he get involved in something like this? I asked, more to myself than to Ruby. Elliot had always been an honest boy. He could lie sometimes about his grades in school or where he went with his friends, but forging financial documents? That's not like him. Ruby sighed, and in that sigh you could hear the years of experience of someone who had seen good people do bad things. People change, Violet, especially when they're pressured by circumstances or other people. Heather, I say, and it's not a question. I don't want to blame your sister-in-law, Ruby says carefully, but it's clear from her tone that that's exactly what she's doing. But according to my source, it was after Elliot got married that his career began to take off in unconventional ways. Sudden promotions, unexpected bonuses, projects not normally entrusted to employees at his level. I remember Heather talking proudly about each of Elliot's promotions, about his new position as a junior partner, how she made plans for a new car, a home renovation, a trip to Europe. How she looked at my crumbling barn with disdain, believing she deserved more, better. She was always ambitious, I say. Too ambitious. Ambition isn't a vice, Ruby says, as long as it doesn't lead to illegal behavior. We fall silent, each of us absorbed in our own thoughts. Finally, Ruby asks, Are you going to call him? I don't know, I answer honestly. I'm not sure he'll want to talk to me. Why not? Did something happen between you two? I hesitate. Should I tell her about what happened at the train station? About Heather's words? About how they wanted to get rid of the old woman? About how my own son seemed willing to declare me incompetent to get my house? It's a long story, I finally say. I'll tell it when I see you. I'll hold you to your word, she says. In the meantime, is there anything I can do to help? You know, I'm connected to a lot of law firms. If Elliot needs a good lawyer, thank you, Ruby, I said sincerely. Just give me a little time to think about it. I'll let you know if I need help. After talking to Ruby, I sit at the window for a long time, looking at my garden but not seeing it. My thoughts swirl around Elliot, his job, his marriage to Heather. When did it all go wrong? When did my honest, kind boy turn into a man willing to falsify financial statements? I think back to a few years ago. Shortly after he'd gotten married, Elliot had complained that his career was moving too slowly. "I'm 33, Mom," he said, "and I'm still in the same position I was 5 years ago. You can't do that." Then I advised him to be patient, keep working hard, and the results would come. He nodded, but there was disappointment in his eyes. And then Heather showed up with her ambitions and her ideas of what a successful life should be. Big house, expensive cars, vacations in exotic countries. And all of that required money. Lots of money. "You deserve more than that," she'd probably told him. "Why do others get promotions and bonuses and you don't? You're smarter than them, more capable. You should be more persistent, more creative." And Elliot, always eager to please, especially the women in his life, first me, then her, listened, started looking for workarounds, cutting corners, and then crossed the line. The phone rings again, interrupting my musings. This time it's Betty. She promised to stop by to check on me. "I'm on the mend," I assure her. "I don't have much of a headache, just a little dizzy if I stand up abruptly." "I'll be there anyway," she says flatly. "I'll bring chicken soup and fresh bread. You need to eat well to recover quickly." After talking to Betty, I go back to thinking about Elliot. Should I call him? What am I going to say? "I heard you lost your job to fraud. How are you?" Or, "Remember when you and Heather's ambition almost cost me my house? I guess karma works fast." No, I can't do that. Despite everything that's happened, he's my son. And right now, he must be going through the hardest days of his life. I make up my mind and dial his number. It rings, but there's no answer. After a minute, I try again. Same result. Is he avoiding my calls or just can't talk right now? I send a simple message. "Elliot, I heard about your problems at work. If you need help or just to talk, I'm here. Love you, Mom." I put my phone away and look out the window again. It's weird how life puts things in perspective sometimes. Just 3 days ago, I was the one who needed help, who was humiliated and abused. And now Elliot and Heather are in trouble and may have to face the consequences of their actions. Karma. I've never really believed in the concept. Ivan, with his practical mind, would have laughed at such reasoning. Life isn't a cosmic equation where good deeds are rewarded and evil deeds are punished, he'd say. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, and vice versa. Still, it's hard not to see the irony of what happened. Just 3 days ago, Heather pushed me out of her car, yelling at me to get out of her crumbling barn. And now her world is falling apart like a house of cards. All the plans for a new car, home renovations, and a trip to Europe are all now in question. If Elliot not only loses his job, but faces lawsuits, they'll have to spend money on lawyers instead of luxuries. The doorbell rings. It's Betty with the promised soup. I open the door, and she immediately takes a critical look at me. "You're looking better," she concludes, walking into the kitchen, "but still pale. Sit down, I'll heat up some soup." I tell her the news about Elliot while Betty works the stove. She shakes her head. "What a shame. He always seemed like such a decent boy." "It's that woman's influence, mark my words." "Betty," I smile, "you haven't even met Heather." "And thank God for that." She snorts. "It's enough that I saw what she did to you. Who pushes an elderly mother-in-law out of a car at the train station? Only a completely heartless person. I'm not arguing with her. Betty was the one who helped me when I came home semi-conscious. She saw the blood, the bruising, my confusion. To her, Heather is a villain, and no amount of explanation will change that opinion. We dine on soup, which is truly delicious. Betty recounts the latest news of our small town: who got married, who got divorced, which store closed, and which opened. Ordinary, everyday events that suddenly seem so precious and real compared to the dramas playing out in Green River. After Betty leaves, I check my phone again. No messages from Elliot. I don't know what to think. Maybe he's too depressed to answer. Or he's mad at the world, including me. Or Heather intercepted my message and deleted it, not wanting my husband to communicate with a mother who is going to die soon anyway, as she once put it, thinking I couldn't hear. The day slowly slips toward evening. I turn on the TV. Maybe the Brightwood investment scandal will be mentioned on the news. Indeed, the economic section is talking about the company's stock plummeting and the firing of several employees involved in falsifying reports. Elliot's name isn't mentioned. Apparently, he's not high profile enough to attract national news attention. That's good. Less public embarrassment. I turn off the TV and go into the garden. Despite the doctor's warnings, I need fresh air to feel the October wind on my face. I sit on a bench under a maple tree, the same one Ivan and I planted the year Elliot was born. The leaves rustle under my feet, and the sound is oddly soothing. "What would you do, Ivan?" I ask mentally, looking up at the sky where the evening clouds are gathering. "Would you help your son unconditionally? Or would I tell him, 'You've done something stupid, now deal with it'?" Ivan was always fair, but strict. He believed in taking responsibility for one's actions. "If you fall, get up and walk on," he used to tell Elliot when he was a kid. "But remember why you fell, so you don't make the same mistakes." I wonder if Elliot will remember those lessons. Will he realize that his fall was not only the result of his own mistakes, but also Heather's influence, her insatiable ambition? By the time I get back to the house, the sun is already setting. At dusk, the old house seems especially cozy. The warm light of the lamps, the familiar creaks of the floorboards, the smell of books and lavender. Yes, maybe the roof leaks in the rain and the porch steps need repair. But this is my home, my sanctuary, my fortress. And now, as Elliot's life crumbles because of misguided decisions and misguided influence, I'm almost grateful to fate for not agreeing to sell the house and move to Sunnyside. Because now maybe it will be my crumbling barn that will be his safe haven if things get really bad. The phone rings and my heart bounces in my chest. "Finally, Elliot?" But Ruby's number pops up on the screen. "I have new information," she says without preamble. "Brightwood is indeed preparing a civil suit against those involved in the scheme. My source got his hands on a draft of the complaint. Elliot is mentioned in it, but not as the main organizer, but rather as the executor. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" I ask, trying to understand the legal intricacies. On the one hand, it's good. He could be offered a deal in exchange for testifying against the executives. On the other hand, he'll still lose his license and will hardly ever be able to work in finance. Ruby's words sound like a judgment. Elliot's career is ruined. Everything he's worked for, everything he's worked for, everything he's worked for, rightly or wrongly, at Heather's insistence, is gone. "And something else," Ruby added. "I didn't want to say until I was sure, but my source confirmed that it seems Heather was the one who insisted that Elliot use unconventional methods to get promoted." How did he know that? She came into the Brightwood office 2 months ago and made a scene, demanded that Elliot be promoted, threatened him with some kind of financial connection. Several employees heard her, and it's not the first time this has happened. I close my eyes, visualizing the scene. Heather in one of her expensive suits bursting into the office, demanding privileges for her husband, humiliating him in front of his co-workers, ruining his reputation, pushing him into what ultimately led to disaster. Poor Elliot, I burst out. Yes, Ruby agrees. But he's a grown man, Violet. He's made his choice. I say goodbye to Ruby and dial my son's number again. This time, to my surprise, he answers. His voice sounds tired and lifeless. Yes, Mom? Elliot, I say softly. I heard about what happened. How are you? He's silent for so long that I think the connection's broken. Finally, he says, You must be disappointed. Your son turned out to be a crook. You're not a crook, I object firmly. You made a mistake, a very serious mistake, but that doesn't define you as a man. He laughs bitterly. Tell that to Brightwood, or my former co-workers, or the clients whose money was lost because of my actions. What happened, Elliot? I'm asking you directly. How did you get involved in this? Long silence again. It's a long story, Mom, and not a very pleasant one. I have time, I say, and I'll listen to anything you have to say. He sighs, a deep, shuddering sigh, as if holding back tears. Not over the phone, okay? Maybe. Maybe I'll come visit you in a couple days. If that's okay with you. My heart clenches with excitement and hope. My boy wants to come home, to me, to the same crumbling barn that his wife despises so much. Of course, I say, trying to keep my voice calm. I'll be waiting. Your room is always ready. Thank you, Mom, he says softly, and there's something of the freckled little boy I once knew in his voice. I'll call before I arrive. When the conversation ends, I sit looking at the phone in my hand and think about the strange twists of fate. 3 days ago, Heather was pushing me out of the car, yelling insults. Today, her husband's career is ruined, and their marriage appears to be cracking at the seams. I don't feel gloating, only sadness for my son and the realization that maybe this disaster is the only way for him to break free of Heather's toxic influence and return to the values Ivan and I taught him as a child. It's finally dark outside the window. I turn on the lamp by the chair, the same one that Ivan used to read his favorite detectives by. I pick up the book, but I can't concentrate on the text. My thoughts keep coming back to Elliot, to his problems, to my upcoming visit. What will I tell him when he arrives? Will I reproach him for his mistakes? Offer unconditional support? Remind him of the way his wife treated me? Or will I just give him a hug and tell him everything will be okay, like I did when he was little and came to me with broken knees and upset plans? I don't know, but one thing is certain. Life has taken an unexpected turn, and now my son needs help. And I, despite everything that has happened, am ready to provide that help. It's been 2 days since I spoke to Elliot. He said he'd be here, but he didn't give me an exact date. I have some things to take care of, he said evasively. I didn't bother asking, knowing he had enough on his mind without me asking. The bruise on his temple was starting to yellow, fading. The headaches are almost gone, with only the occasional lightheadedness if I stand up abruptly. Betty keeps coming in, though not 3 times a day, but only in the mornings, bringing fresh bread and news of the town. I decided to garden today, a mild fall day that lends itself to leisurely outdoor work. I put on my old gloves, grabbed a rake, and went out into the yard. The fallen maple leaves have formed a red-gold carpet that looks so beautiful that it's almost a shame to clean it up. But practicality trumps aesthetics. If the leaves are left to rot, there will be lawn problems in the spring. I methodically rake the leaves into piles, enjoying the measured, almost meditative rhythm of the work. My thoughts flow freely about the past, about the future, about unexpected turns of fate. I remember how Ivan loved autumn. It's the most honest time of year, he said. No illusions. Everything is in plain sight. Just like in life, sooner or later everything's secret comes out. I wish he were around now. He always knew what to say and how to act in difficult situations. If he were alive, though, maybe none of this would have happened. Elliot always listened to his father, respected his opinion, and Heather wouldn't have risked such a blatant display of disdain for her husband's family if Ivan were alive. I finished the first pile of leaves and moved to the other side of the yard. The sun is pleasantly warm on my back, the wind ruffling the branches of the trees. At times like this, I feel especially acutely how much I love my house and this garden. How could I sell it all and move into a sterile room at Sunnyside? The sound of a car pulling up distracts me from my musings. I don't expect visitors. Betty has already stopped by this morning, and I hardly ever have other visitors. Maybe it was Elliot who decided to show up unannounced. I lean the rake against the tree trunk and walk to the gate. A familiar silver BMW stands in the driveway. Heather's car. My first impulse is to go back inside, shut the door, and not answer it. After what she's done, she has the nerve to come here. But curiosity and some strange premonition stop me. I stand still, watching her get out of the car. And it's not the same Heather I saw a week ago. There's no flawless hair, no perfect makeup, no expensive suit. Her hair is in a sloppy ponytail. Her face is pale and makeup-free, and her clothes are simple jeans and a sweater I've never seen her wear before. She catches sight of me, and for a moment her face shows a range of emotions: surprise, shame, uncertainty, despair. "Violet," she said, and her voice sounded different than usual, not her usual self-assurance and condescension. "Heather," I answer neutrally, making no attempt to move closer. What a surprise! She takes a few steps toward the wicket, stopping hesitantly. "Yeah, can I come in? I need to talk to you." Part of me wants to refuse, to slam the door in her face, like she actually did to me at the train station. But the other part, the more rational part, reminds me that this is my son's wife, and if she's here, it must be serious. "Come in," I say, opening the gate. She enters the yard, looking around with a new expression, not contempt, as before, but rather thoughtfulness. "You have a beautiful garden," she says. "Thank you," I reply dryly. "Let's go inside." In the living room, I point to a chair, the same one that had been here since Ivan's day. She sits down on the edge, as if she's afraid to get comfortable. "Tea? Coffee?" I offer, honoring the rules of hospitality, though my insides are seething with conflicting emotions. "No, thank you," she says, then changes her mind. "Actually, yes, anything, if it's not too much trouble." I go into the kitchen and put the kettle on. My hands are trembling slightly, and I'm angry at myself for my weakness. Why does her presence have this effect on me? Why did I let her in instead of sending her away? I return with 2 cups of tea. Heather is still sitting on the edge of the chair, nervously tugging at the sleeve of her sweater. "So," I say, sitting down across from her, "what brings you here, Heather?" She looks up at me, and I see tears in her eyes. I've never seen Heather cry before. She always seemed too cold and calculating for such displays of emotion. "Violet, she stammered, trying to gather her thoughts. "I know you must hate me after what happened at the train station. And I get it. I behaved terribly. Unforgivable. That's for sure, I think, but I don't say anything out loud. Just wait for her to continue. "I came to apologize," she continues. E. To ask for help. There it is. Of course she wouldn't come just to apologize. She needs something. "What kind of help are we talking about?" I ask in a neutral tone. She takes a deep breath, like she's about to dive into cold water. You've probably heard about what happened to Elliot, the scandal at Brightwood. Yes, I did. He was fired, and not just fired, he's being sued. There may even be criminal charges. Her voice is shaky. Everything's falling apart, Violet. Our whole life. I look at her and see what used to be hidden behind her impeccable looks and arrogant manners. A frightened young woman whose carefully constructed world is falling apart. I'm sorry Elliot's in this situation, I say sincerely. But what can I do to help? Ruby Payne, she says, and I wonder how she knows that name. Your friend from the law firm of Payne, Wilson and Associates. She's a powerful person in legal circles. If she was willing to help Elliot, represent him, or even recommend a good lawyer. So that's why she's here. Not to apologize, but to use my connections. How do you know about Ruby? I'm asking you straight up. Heather lowers her gaze. Elliot told me about her, about how you worked together, how she made partner at the firm when it was almost impossible for women. And you thought I'd ask her to help Elliot after you pushed me out of your car, causing me to get a concussion? She flinches like she's been hit. I know I don't deserve your help. I've been acting disgusting, and not just that day at the train station. Yes, I agree calmly. Disgusting is the right word. Heather looks up at me with a look of despair. I'm not asking for me, Violet. I'm asking for Elliot. He doesn't deserve what's happening. Not completely. What do you mean, not completely? She's silent, clearly struggling with herself. Finally, she says, it's my fault. What he did at Brightwood. Yeah, I pushed him into it. Although I already knew this from Ruby, hearing Heather admit it is strange. How? I kept pushing him, told him he should be more assertive, that he deserved a promotion, more money, that others get all that without putting in as much effort as he does. She chuckles bitterly. I even went to his superiors, demanded that they appreciate him. What did you think was going to come out of that? I thought I was helping him. Her voice sounds pathetic. I thought I was supporting his career. Instead, I ruined it. There's silence. I ponder her words. Do I believe her remorse? Or is this just another manipulation, this time designed to exploit my connections? Heather, I finally say, Elliot is a grown man. He made his own decisions, his own choices to forge documents. You could have influenced him, but the final decision was his. I know, she nods. He feels the same way. That's why we... She stops talking, swallowing tears. What? I push her to continue. We're on the verge of divorce, she says so quietly I can barely hear her. So Elliot's finally had an epiphany. He's seen that this woman is bringing more problems than happiness into his life. Part of me, the part of me that still hurts from hitting my head on the curb, wants to say, serves you right, but I hold back. I'm sorry, I say neutrally. Are you? She looks at me questioningly. After everything I've done, after the way I've treated you all these years, I don't take joy in other people's misfortune, Heather. I answer simply, not even yours. She lowers her head, and I can see the tears dripping down her clenched hands. He blames me for everything, she says in a shaky voice. Says I ruined his career, his reputation, his life, that I never truly loved him, but only used him for my own ends. Is that true? I ask her directly. She looks up, and in her eyes I see not only tears, but a sincerity I've never noticed before. No, I do love him. It's just not in the right way. Not the way Elliot deserves. She pauses. I always thought love was about making the other person better, more successful, richer, to push them to do more. That's how my parents raised me. Constant competition, constant striving for more. I'm beginning to understand. Not to justify, but to understand. Love is accepting someone for who they are. I say softly, with his advantages and disadvantages, strengths and weaknesses. This does not mean that you cannot support the desire for growth and development, but it has to come from within, not imposed from the outside. Heather listens intently, as if absorbing every word. I've never thought of it that way, she admits. For me, love has always been conditional. You get it when you meet expectations, when you achieve the goals you've been set. It's not love, Heather. It's a contract. She nods, and a new wave of tears come to her eyes. I understand now, but it's too late. Elliot doesn't want to see me. He packed up and left 3 days ago. Said he needed time to think. She pauses. I've tried calling him, but he won't answer. I don't even know where he is right now. I know, or at least I have a hunch. Based on our last conversation, Elliot was coming to see me. But I don't tell Heather that. If my son wants to distance himself from his wife, I respect his choice. What do you want from me, Heather? I'm asking you straight out. Do you want me to talk to Ruby about helping Elliot? Or to help you get your husband back? She looks confused, as if she doesn't know the answer. Both, I guess, she says finally. I know I don't deserve your help, especially after the train station. I swear I didn't mean for you to fall and hit yourself. I was just so angry. You refused to sell the house, and we were counting on that money. Why did you need that money? I'm asking, even though I already know the answer. We, uh, we have debts, she admits reluctantly. The mortgage on the house, the car loan, my credit cards. Elliot's salary wasn't enough for the kind of lifestyle I felt necessary. Which you thought was necessary, I mentally note. Not we, I. And that's why you encouraged him to cheat? I didn't know what he was doing, she says quickly, then gives up under my skeptical gaze. Or maybe I didn't want to know. I just saw the results, the raises, the bonuses. I was comfortable not asking questions. We fall silent again. I'm reflecting on what I've heard. Maybe there's some truth to what she said. Perhaps she is truly remorseful. But is that enough to earn her forgiveness and help? Violet, she says, breaking the silence, I know I've hurt you, that I've been a terrible daughter-in-law, that I tried to keep Elliot away from you. Her voice trembles. I was jealous of your connection to him, the way he spoke of you, the way he remembered his childhood. I felt your influence threatened mine. That's the confession that surprises me the most. I never thought Heather, with her confidence and beauty, could be jealous of me, an older woman living in a crumbling barn. I was stupid and selfish, she continued, and now I'm paying for it. We're both paying the price. What do you want from me, Heather? I repeat the question. Specifically. She takes a deep breath. Talk to Ruby. Ask her to help Elliot. Not for me, for him. He doesn't deserve to go to jail or have his career completely ruined. What about your marriage? Yeah, I want to save it. If Elliot gives me a chance. She looks me straight in the eye. I will change, Violet. I swear. I already am. What happened? It's like a slap in the face, an awakening. I'm not sure I believe in sudden transformations like that. People don't change in a few days. But a crisis can really be a catalyst for a reassessment of values. If I talk to Ruby, I say slowly, it'll be for Elliot, not for you, and I won't interfere in your relationship. It's a matter between the two of you. I understand, she nods. Thank you for listening, for not kicking me out right away, even though you had every right to. She finishes her tea, which must be quite cold by now. She puts the cup on the table and stands up. I'll be going. I won't take up any more of your time. I get up too and walk her to the door. She stops at the door as if she's remembered something important. Violet, I'm really sorry. About that day at the train station. About everything. She points to my temple, where the yellowing bruise is still visible. I wasn't myself, but that's no excuse. No, it's no excuse, I agree. I understand if you can never forgive me, she says quietly. I look at her, this young woman who has caused me so much pain, who tried to take my house, who pushed my son away from me, who now stands before me, broken and remorseful. Forgiveness is a complicated thing, Heather, I finally say. It doesn't come all at once, and it doesn't come at the snap of a finger. But I'll try, not for you, but for Elliot, and for me. She nods, something like gratitude in her eyes. Then she turns and walks away. I stand on the doorstep, watching her get into her silver BMW and drive slowly out of the yard. When the car is out of sight, I go back inside and immediately dial Ruby's number. She answers after the second ring. Violet, is something wrong? Ruby, remember when you offered to help Elliot? I'd like to discuss it. Sure, she answers without hesitation. What exactly are you interested in? Everything. What are his chances of avoiding prosecution? What would he face in the worst case scenario? How can we minimize the damage to his reputation and career? Hmm, Ruby sounds thoughtful. The situation is difficult, but not hopeless, especially if he's willing to cooperate with the investigation and testify against the organizers of the scheme. Could you represent him, or at least recommend a good lawyer? Sure. I've got a couple of excellent economic crime specialists on my books, and if you need me, I can get involved personally. She pauses. What's changed, Violet? A couple days ago, you were hesitant. Heather came to see me, I answer honestly, asking for help for Elliot. Heather? I can hear the surprise in Ruby's voice. The one who pushed you out of the car? She is. And you agreed to help? After everything she did? I wonder how to explain my decision. I agreed to help Elliot, I clarify. He's still my son, no matter what. What about Heather? Have you forgiven her? Not entirely, I admit, but she seems genuinely remorseful. And then, looking at her today, so broken and confused, I realized she's been punished enough. Their marriage is on the verge of divorce, her financial situation is in jeopardy, all her dreams of a life of luxury have crumbled. Karma, Ruby remarks philosophically. Maybe, I agree, or just the natural consequences of bad decisions. We agree that Ruby will contact Elliot soon to discuss possible defense options. I thank her and say goodbye, feeling relieved that I've taken the first step toward helping my son. After talking to Ruby, I return to the garden, to the unfinished work. I rake up the remaining leaves, thinking about Heather's unexpected visit and what it might mean. Do I believe she's remorseful? Partly. It's common for people to reassess their values when faced with serious crises. But whether she has really changed or is simply looking for a way to regain the status quo ante is a question that only time can answer. Finished with the leaves, I sit down on the bench under the maple tree. The wind is picking up, tearing the last leaves off the branches. Soon winter will come, and everything will freeze until spring. But now, at this moment of transition, when nature is preparing for winter sleep, I feel a strange excitement. It's as if my life is about to change. A new chapter, new possibilities. The phone rings. I take it out of my pocket and it's Elliot. Mom, he says without preamble, I'll be there tomorrow, if you don't mind. Of course, darling, I answer, not mentioning Heather's visit. I'll be waiting for you. When the conversation ends, I sit under the maple tree, looking out at my house, old and dilapidated in places, but solid and welcoming. How ironic, I think, that the crumbling barn, as Heather scornfully called it, has become a refuge for my son at a difficult time in his life. And it's even more ironic that Heather, who was so intent on keeping Elliot away from me, was the one who pushed him to come home. She destroyed his career with her ambition, and her cruelty destroyed their marriage. Karma really does work in amazing ways, I think, as I get up from the bench and head toward the house. Tomorrow, Elliot arrives, and a new phase in our relationship begins. I don't know what the future will bring, whether he'll be able to rebuild his career, whether he'll save his marriage if he wants to. But one thing I do know is that I will be there to support him like I always have. Elliot arrived early in the morning. I heard the sound of a car pulling up as I was making breakfast. I looked out the window and saw his old Ford, not the expensive car he usually drove with Heather. My heart clenched with excitement and anxiety. How will our conversation go? What should I say? How can I help him without imposing my opinion? I walk out onto the porch and wait for him to get his suitcase out of the trunk. He turns around, and I can see how much he's changed this week. The droopy face, the circles under his eyes, the slouching shoulders. It's like he's carrying an invisible weight. He notices me and tries to smile, but it's a fake smile. "Hi, Mom," he says as he walks up the stairs. "Hello, darling," I say, hugging him. He pauses for a moment. We haven't had a real hug in years. And then he pulls me tight against him, and I feel his shoulders shudder. Is he crying? No, just deep, ragged breathing, holding back his emotions. "Come in," I say, pulling away. "I'm just making breakfast." He enters the house, looking around with a new expression, as if he's seeing everything for the first time, or, on the contrary, remembering something long forgotten. "Nothing has changed," he says quietly. "The same couch, the same bookshelves, the same smell, the same crumbling barn," I add with a touch of irony. He gives me a guilty look. "Mom, I know," I interrupt him. "They were Heather's words, not yours, although you never once contradicted her when she said them." Elliot lowers his head. "You're right. I should have. I should have done a lot of things differently." "Let's not talk about that now," I say softly. "Take your things to your room and come downstairs for breakfast. Scrambled eggs and bacon, just the way you like them." His face brightens for a moment. "You remember?" "Of course I remember. I'm your mother." He heads up the stairs, and I walk back into the kitchen, thinking about how strange things have turned out. A week ago, I thought I'd lost my son forever, that he was completely under Heather's influence, that our bond was irrevocably broken. And now he's here, in his own home, seeking comfort and support. Over breakfast, we talk about insignificant things: the garden, the weather, the neighbors. We avoid the main topic, as if delaying the inevitable but difficult conversation. Finally, when the plates are empty and the coffee cups are almost finished, I make up my mind. "Tell me what happened, Elliot." He sighs, leaning back in his chair. "Where to start? How I became a crook, or how I lost my job, my reputation, and possibly my freedom." "Start at the beginning," I suggest calmly. "How did you get involved in this scheme to falsify reports?" He stares out the window, gathering his thoughts. "It started about 2 years ago. I worked hard, but progress was slow. Heather, she always wanted more: a bigger house, a better car, expensive vacations." He pauses. "I don't blame her entirely. I wanted those things too, wanted to live up to her expectations, to be successful in her eyes." I nod silently, letting him continue at his own pace. "My coworker Lawrence suggested a scheme to me. Said everyone does it, they just don't talk about it. Small adjustments to fund returns reports to attract more investors. Nothing serious," he assured me. Elliot chuckles bitterly. "I said no at first. Then I thought about it. Then I agreed to a one-time adjustment. And then it became a regular thing." "And Heather knew about this?" "I didn't go into detail, but she knew I was doing something on the edge of the law. Didn't question it when I started getting raises and bonuses. He looks at me with pain in his eyes. Remember when you told me you inherited his integrity from your father? Apparently, I lost it somewhere along the way. Elliot, I say firmly, you made a mistake, a serious mistake. But that doesn't define you as a person. It's what you do next, how you fix it. I'm not sure it can be fixed, he replies grimly. Brightwood is preparing a lawsuit. There might be a criminal case. I lost my license. My career is ruined. At 38, you have to start from scratch. A lot of people start over at 50 or 60, I said softly. You have your whole life ahead of you. I, I pause. You have help. He looks up at me in surprise. What kind of help? I talked to Ruby Payne. You remember her? She's an old friend of mine, partner at the law firm. Of course I remember her. She came to our house for Christmas when I was about 12, brought a huge teddy bear. A shadow of a smile flickered across his face. She agreed to help you, to recommend a good lawyer who specializes in economic crimes, or even get involved in the case herself if necessary. Elliot looks at me with disbelief and hope. Really? But why? Why would she agree to help me? She doesn't even know me. She knows me, I answer simply, and she knows what it's like to start from scratch. In her day, women had a much harder time breaking through in the legal world. Mom, he's stammering. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. I shake my head. But there is one condition. What's that? I look him straight in the eye. You have to cooperate fully with the investigation. Tell everything you know about the scheme, about its organizers. No more attempts to cut corners, no more lies. Sure, he nods. I was going to do it anyway. There's one more thing, I add, pulling myself together. It's about Heather. His face instantly tenses. What about her? She came by yesterday, I say bluntly. Here? He looks genuinely surprised. Why? To ask for my help. Well, Ruby's help for you. To try to save your marriage. Elliot stands up abruptly from the table, takes a few steps across the kitchen as if he needs movement to deal with his emotions. And what did you say to her? He finally asks. That I would help you, but not her. I pause. Elliot, I think you need to start a new life, without Heather. He looks at me with an uncertain expression. Are you saying that because of what happened at the train station? Because of the way she treated you all those years ago? Not only that, I answer honestly. Although the fact that she pushed me out of the car and I got a concussion can hardly be called a minor incident. Elliot flinches. She said you fell on your own, that she just reached for your suitcase. She lied. I interrupt calmly. But it's more than that. It's about the effect she has on you. She pushed you to cheat with her exorbitant ambition. She tried to alienate you from your family. She wanted to force me to sell the house to solve your financial problems, which most likely stemmed from her profligacy. He lowers his head without arguing. I know you still love her. I continue softer. But love doesn't always mean staying together. Sometimes loving means letting go, especially if the relationship is toxic. I don't know if I still love her, he admits, returning to the table. After what happened, it's all so messed up. Part of me wants to never see her again. The other part of me misses her, the way she was at the beginning of our relationship. People change, I say, but they usually show their true colors in times of crisis. And the way Heather acted when you lost your job, the way she came here to ask for help from the woman she literally pushed out of her car a week ago, that's saying a lot. Elliot is silent for a long moment, considering my words. Finally, he says, You're right. I need a fresh start. And Heather, she has no place in my new life. I'm relieved, but I try not to be too obvious about it. It's his decision, and it wasn't easy for him. What are you going to do next? I ask, changing the subject. First, I'm going to take care of the legal issues. If your friend Ruby can really help, that would be a huge relief. I'll arrange for you to meet in the next few days, I promise. And then? Then, I don't know. He looks confused. I don't think I'll be able to find a job in finance. Maybe I'll try something completely different. Like what? He thinks about it. Remember, when I was a kid, I dreamed of opening a bookstore? Small, cozy, with a section of rare editions and a tea corner. I smile, remembering how little Elliot used to spend hours at the local library, how he used to line up his books by cover color, how he read stories of adventure and faraway worlds. I remember, it was a good dream. Maybe now would be a good time to get back to it, he says with a glimmer of enthusiasm I haven't seen in him in years. Not in Green River, of course. There are already 2 bookstores there. But maybe here? There hasn't been a good bookstore in our town since old Thompson closed his. That's a great idea. I second that wholeheartedly. And I have some savings that could serve as startup capital. No, Mom. He shakes his head. I'm not taking your money. Not after everything that's happened. I'll manage on my own. Elliot, I say firmly, it's not a handout. It's an investment. I'll be your partner. A minority, I add, seeing his hesitation. 20%? The rest you'll earn on your own or take out a loan. He looks at me with surprise and gratitude. Are you really willing to help me start over? After being such a horrible son? After letting Heather treat you so undignified? You're my son, I'll answer simply. And you always will be, no matter what. He silently takes my hand and squeezes it, a gesture that says more than any words can. Over the next few days, Elliot and I begin working on a plan for his new life. Ruby arrives with a colleague, an economic crimes specialist, and they spend a few hours discussing defense strategy. The situation is difficult, but not hopeless. If Elliot cooperates fully with the investigation and testifies against the organizers of the scheme, there is a chance to avoid jail time. On the 3rd day of his stay, my phone rings. It's Heather. Violet, she says without preamble. Do you have Elliot? Yes, I answer honestly. He's here. I thought so, she says with bitterness in her voice. He won't return my calls, doesn't read my messages. Yeah, I need to talk to him. Heather, I say softly but firmly. I don't think now is the best time. Elliot's making important decisions about his future, about a new beginning. Without me, it's not a question, it's a statement. Yes, I don't see the point in lying. Without you, she's silent for so long that I'm beginning to think the connection has broken. You influenced him, she says finally, convinced him to leave me. No, Heather, I object calmly. The decision was his own. I only supported him. And you'll be helping him? Through your lawyer friend? Yes, I confirm. Ruby's already met with him and taken his case. There's another long silence. I see, she finally says. Well, tell him. She hesitates. Tell him I'm coming to get my things out of the house this weekend. If he doesn't want to see me, he can just leave his keys with the neighbors. I will, I promise. And, Violet, her voice sounds suddenly vulnerable. Take care of him, okay? No matter what, I only want what's best for him. I know, I say softly, and I will take care of him. I always do. When the conversation ends, I sit for a while, thinking about Heather. Maybe there's more humanity in her than I realized. Perhaps she really did love Elliot in her own way. But sometimes love isn't enough, especially when it's mixed with ambition, selfishness, and an inability to see the value of simple things. Elliot decides to go to Green River this weekend to pick up his things and leave his keys for Heather. I offer to go with him, but he refuses. I have to do this on my own, Mom. Close this chapter and move on. Saturday, he leaves early in the morning. All day, I'm in a strange, agitated state, as if I'm waiting for something, not knowing what it is. I clean the house, cook dinner, read, but I can't concentrate on any one thing. When evening comes and Elliot isn't back, I start to worry. I call him, but the phone goes to voicemail. Another hour passes, and I'm ready to call Betty and ask her to give me a ride to the bus station so I can go to Green River. Finally, I hear the sound of a car pulling up. I look out the window. It's Elliot's Ford. I go out on the porch and am surprised to see that the car is literally full of stuff: boxes, suitcases, even some furniture tied to the roof. Elliot gets out of the car, looking tired but strangely peaceful. It's like he's taken a heavy weight off his shoulders. "Sorry it took so long," he says. "I had to pack more stuff than I'd planned." "Is everything okay?" I ask, helping him untie the boxes from the roof. "Yeah," he nods. "But I ran into Heather." "Oh," is all I can say. "And how was that meeting?" "Unexpectedly peaceful." He looks surprised by his own words. "She wasn't her usual self, more quiet, thoughtful. Said she understood my decision and wouldn't interfere. Apologized for everything." "And you forgave her?" He's thinking about it. "I don't know, maybe in time. But I told her I held no grudges, that I wanted her to find her own way, like I found mine." We take the stuff into the house, as much as we can at a time, leave the rest in the car until morning. We walk up to the porch, and I look outside. The sun is already setting, coloring everything around us in golden hues. Fall is in full swing, and the maple leaves are almost all fallen, but the tree stands strong, going through another change of seasons. "Home," Elliot says quietly, looking up at the front of our old house. "I'm finally home." And I realize our story is taking a new turn. Elliot has returned, not as a temporary guest, but to start a new life, a life in which I will play an important role, not just as a mother, but as a partner, a counselor, a friend. And somewhere in Green River, Heather is packing up her belongings in the empty house she once thought was perfect. She too is starting a new chapter, but without Elliot, without his support and love. Part of me feels sorry for her, despite everything she's done, but I know it's best for everyone. We enter the house, and I turn on the hallway light. The old floorboards creak under our feet, but that sound no longer seems like a sign of decay. It is now the sound of a house that lives, breathes, holds our family's history. "We'll need to vacate the attic room tomorrow," I say, remembering the amount of stuff in the car. "You can set up your office there and start planning the bookstore." Elliot smiles, the first real genuine smile he's had in days. "That sounds like a great idea, and we should also get to work on fixing the porch and roof. This house deserves to be taken care of." "Yes," I agree, feeling my heart warm. "It does deserve it." That evening, we sit in the living room, discussing plans for the future. Elliot has a hard road ahead of him: legal problems, finding a new calling, building a life from scratch. But he's not alone anymore. He has me, Ruby, maybe some new friends and partners he'll meet along the way. And I have a new purpose: to help my son get back on his feet, to support him through the tough times, to share in the joy of small and big victories, to be not just the mother of a grown son, but to be an active participant in his new life. Karma really does work in amazing ways. A week ago, Heather was pushing me out of her car, yelling at me to get out of my crumbling barn. And today, she is leaving her perfect home on her own, and my son is back in the very same shed that will now be a new beginning for him. Life goes on, taking unexpected turns, and I'm ready for what lies ahead, no matter how difficult the challenges, because now I have regained what I almost lost: my son, our connection, our family.